Welcome to the Midland Moment Podcast, the podcast dedicated to telling the story of Midland through the eyes of our employees. I'm your host, Jeremy Wiltz. With me today is Megan Callahan. Megan serves as our weekend and on-call care team coordinator, and she has been working with Midland for the last 4.5 years in various roles. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you, Jeremy.
So Megan, I'm really excited to have you on this podcast today to kind of give you a little more intro of why Megan was someone that I really wanted to have on the podcast. If any of you follow or are friends with her on social media, she's had some really cool posts on social media about what we do and the valuable services that we provide, especially in our hospice. And so Megan, can you tell me a little bit of what led you to come to Midland in the first place? What got you here 4.5 years ago?
So during that time, it was a difficult time because I kind of got angry and quit my job, and I left the bedside nursing, and I had just bought a house, so I knew I needed a job right away. And so I remember taking the first job that came. I didn't even really know what hospice was, but I took an RN case manager position and started. And then I fell in love with it almost immediately. And so I'm definitely meant to be in the home care setting with patients and sharing my support with them, and everything that I have learned has been amazing. And I have never looked back to another job or leaving this company.
So could you dive in just a little bit as a home care nurse, and you know you've moved up into the care team coordinator position. You help with our on call on the weekend. We get several emails from you over the weekend about what goes on when we don't have our 8 to 5 staff during the week. But could you tell me a little bit about, from the home care side, what a day in the life of a home care hospice nurse looks like?
Yeah. So what we're responsible for is when families choose to come on to hospice, home care, they're saying they're making the decision that they're no longer wanting to seek aggressive treatment. So they're not giving up treatment. They're just finding a different goal. And that goal is comfort. So with that, they can use their valuable time not going to doctor's appointments, not scheduling transport, but they can stay home, and we act as that nursing staff, physician staff, social work, home health aides, to keep them in the home or keep them going to places that they want to. Like some patients like going to the casino or going to their grandkids' houses or stuff like that. So what I do is we make sure they're comfortable in the homes, that their needs are being met. Pain management, symptom management, bed baths. We just provide all that inclusive support, especially to the families. I would consider even the families our patients too, because we provide them just as much as support as we do patients. And on the weekends, it's primarily the very sick patients that we see out of business hours. I primarily do admissions and referrals, onboarding new patients. We are seeing those who are close to passing, those who have fallen, wound care. We really truly do it all.
Yeah, and I think it's such an interesting thing that you brought up in there, and something I want to kind of highlight is the idea that when we have a patient on hospice, it's not just them that we have on our service, it's also their family. Mm-hmm. And it's the healing, comfort, and support that we give to not just patients, but to all those involved. And I think that's a really it's an important piece of what we do. That a lot of people that are looking at hospice are looking to, they've been given news that their loved one is going to pass away in the near future, and they're in panic mode. And so tell me a little bit about the support that you're able to give to families in the home as well as to patients.
I'd say the biggest support is there is nothing more humbling or when a patient is having uncontrolled symptoms, like a COPD patient. They're in pain, they're shortness of breath, their family members feel at a loss or feel like even though they don't want to go to the hospital, they feel like they have to because, they can't stand watching their loved ones suffer. And it is so comforting to both them and to me, and to make that difference, giving them the right medications, prescriptions, and the care that they need, even simple as ordering oxygen, and watching that relief go through the patient and watching them get comfortable. And it's almost an emotional experience with families, like, no one can survive anything on their own anymore. Everyone needs help. And to watch the symptoms become managed really truly helps families believe in what we do and keep them home and keep them from revocating. Because sometimes people feel forced to go into the hospital. And with Midland services, you don't have to. We're here 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And so watching the symptom management, offering a respite when families are just so tired and exhausted and we need a break. I always tell this to families, if they need to go to the hospice house, that doesn't make you a failure. That makes you, you're taking care of yourself. And that's just as important, because you got to care for yourself to care for them. And sometimes patients who pass at the hospice house, I always tell them, you know what, you got the chance to be a wife today, a daughter today, instead of a caregiver. And, you gave us that job to do so you could be a loved one instead of a caregiver today.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important piece, and that's such a vital piece of what we do is we allow families to be family.
Mm-hmm.
For that short period of time when we're there, you let us take care of it. We can set you up in a way that makes the burden of caring for someone less in some ways, and we can provide extra support, whether it be aids to help with more routine care, or whether it's to have a nurse that's coordinating with your medical team and making medication changes and doing those sorts of things to help you. You're not on your own, and we can help you navigate that, which I think is super helpful and surprising to people sometimes how much support is given to not just the patient, but to the family as well.
And the dignity too. So, like, I had one daughter, she was just in tears before that. She's never given her father a bath before, and she was in tears, and he was, absolutely humiliated at the thought. And I said, I can set you up with home health aid. They can do it. And with, families almost don't believe what we can provide and support. And I'm like, when patients wait too long to come on to hospice services, I'm like, you don't have to be at death's door to come on to hospice services. I explain we've had patients on services for a long time, and to be able to utilize all of our services is a gift for both them and, for us.
Yeah. And I think, you exemplify a lot of what we love to have in our hospice nurses. You have such a great heart for this. And, you talked a little bit about in the beginning when you came to Midland, it wasn't that it was an experience that you had with hospice, or it wasn't a deep calling at first. What about Midland drew you in? What about what we do or the values that we have made you want to be at Midland still 4.5 years later?
So my first day of NEO here, I went home that night and I found out that I was pregnant. And fast forward 9 months, I'm loving my job. I'm about to go on maternity leave, and we lost our daughter 4 days after she was born. And I was only with Midland for like 8 months at that point. They owed me absolutely nothing. I knew FMLA, I didn't qualify because I had been here less than a year. And I didn't know very much or very many people. They owed me nothing. And everyone literally jumped in. Kay Gillette, Chelsea Forrester, everyone just provided me so much support and loyalty after Everly died. And they saved my job. I was out for 15 weeks, bearing my daughter and going through kind of the physical healing, emotional healing. And the fact that the loyalty that Midland gives, not just to our patients, but to their staff too, is because if you can't give that kind of, how are we supposed to give patients that kind of care and not our staff? And Midland was there every single step of that, offering to bring me meals. And I'd come home with flowers on my doorstep, and, people checking in just to see if I'm having an okay day. And when I slowly came back to work, they were like, do you want part-time? Do you want weekends? How can we make this easier for you? And the loyalty and the love that they gave me during that time for a person that I barely knew was outstanding. And I just never looked back.
Yeah. And I thank you for sharing that. And I know you and I've had conversations, and, Everly's been a part of the Midland story. And that's really a cool thing for us. We all love you like family here, and we were happy to step in and to support. But that that story, and the reason I bring it up is because it really does exemplify the people that we have working here.
Absolutely. For Everly's first birthday, Caitlin Shively collected all the employees after she passed. People made T-shirts for Everly. They're the Everly Everlasting shirts, and Caitlin and Chelsea coordinated. And I came to work, and everyone was wearing an Everly Everlasting T-shirt, all the employees and coworkers. And we got to take a picture for Everly's first birthday. That was their way of showing me support that, during that hard time. And I bawled my eyes out and I still have that picture on my desk.
Yeah, and I remember that event well. And again, we're thankful for your willingness to share that story and know that it's not always an easy story to share, but it's a story that continues to shape Midland and shape especially your career here. So can you tell me a little bit more about you've already talked about some of the family care that we can give. Do you have any stories or any like those aha moments where you're like, this is what I want to do? This is why I got into nursing. This is why hospice is for me.
Several. There's one in particular in the last year. I was working Christmas, and it was like 17 degrees. It was snowing. It was freezing. And at first I was, kind of irritable, to have to go out on a Christmas. And I was driving there, and it just kind of hit me. This person just lost their mom on Christmas. I got, pulled out of my bed on Christmas, but this person just lost their mom. And I went in there, and it was such a beautiful death visit. And like, I hugged the family, I prayed with the family, and they were so appreciative. And, at first they were sorry for everything that happened on a holiday, but I was like, this is what we do. This is what hospice is. And that was one of the better Christmases I've had. Cause I got, this is, to me, hospice is doing God's work. And I always see hospice as God's waiting room. And you know what? It was an honor to work with that family on Christmas.
And I think that's so cool. And I love that phrase that you used. And it's one that's actually stuck with me a lot since I saw you actually posted on Facebook at one point, was that you're honored to work in God's waiting room. And I think that's such a cool concept of the sacred work that we do, whether we realize it each day or not. I've shared before, it's a very humbling experience to come to work and to go into my office in the first building and see cars driving past building A, past building B, and going to park at the hospice house, and know that there are people up there. There are employees that we have up there that are working in God's waiting room that day. And there are patients up there that are transitioning from the waiting room to there. And so I think that is a really powerful statement and a really powerful image to have in people's minds. So as you look forward for Midland, you've been here for 4.5 years. We continue to move, and Midland continues to change. What are the things that excite you about the future of Midland as we continue to grow and change over the coming years?
I would say I'm most excited about our staff, because I feel like we have such a good team right now, and it's so important to have that loyalty and trust, because nurses need that. We need to be able to depend on each other, because there are times where this becomes a lot and we need to take a breather and just, feeling more like a family. I'd also say education. We're really growing in the education department, making sure we're staying up to date on best practices for symptom management, family care, or bereavement services that we offer. Like, we just offer so much, and making sure everyone understands that, so no one gets missed on the services that we could be offering them.
I think those are both really cool examples. And I kudos to the hospice team and the home health team and the whole Midland team as a whole. I would agree with you. We are growing as a company and as departments together to become even more effective.
And Jenny Beaver is rocking it. She is currently director of both home health and hospice, and she has really changed things in an amazing way. And I hope she continues to grow with us too in the future.
Yeah, and a kudos and shout out to Jenny, one of our previous podcast guests that we got to highlight at one point. If you guys want to hear more about her, make sure to check out that podcast on Jenny Beaver. So last question, I always like to ask kind of a fun question at the end, and I already know the answer because we actually talked about this. But where is your favorite vacation spot? What do you love to go do for vacation?
I go to the beach every first 2 weeks of July. I don't care what beach. It's just last year was Myrtle Beach. This year we're going to Port St. Joe. Every year for my daughter's, what would have been her birthday, we spend her birthday releasing balloons on the beach. So that's been something me and my husband's done this will be our 4th year doing it. But even before then, we travel at least once a year to the beach.
And I think that's such another cool way that you continue to remember Everly as you move forward. And thank you, Megan, for taking the time today to be on the podcast. Absolutely. And thank you for all the work that you do. It really is very impactful to hear you speak in the way that you present yourself and the way that you continue to tell our story to the community. So for Jeremy Wiltz and the Midland Moment podcast team, thank you for tuning in today, and we will see you next time.